joining us here for the Fate and Fiction panel, which is a title I just really love. And welcome back to all of our panelists who are alums of the Mississippi Book Festival. Yes. And Brendan and Katherine, Brendan and Clémence, you were on a panel together before the last time you were here.
We got the band back together.
Hey, Clémence.
So I am going to give a little bio of each of our authors, and then we'll get started. There'll be some time at the end if you want to think of the burning questions that I know you want to ask them. Brendan Slocumb was raised in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and holds a degree in music education with concentrations in violin and viola from the University of North Carolina at Greensboro. For more than 20 years, he has been a public and private school music educator and has performed with orchestras throughout Northern Virginia, Maryland, and Washington, D.C. Besides The Dark Maestro, he is the author of The Violin Conspiracy and Symphony of Secrets. And Katherine Wood is a native of Jackson, Mississippi. I was waiting. And a graduate of the University of Southern California, who worked in the entertainment industry for many years before turning to penning novels. She is the author of Sunburned and Lady Killer, and also writes under the pen name Katherine St. John. And Katherine St. John wrote The Siren and The Lion's Den. Katherine lives in Atlanta with her husband, 2 children, a naughty pug, and a ferocious kitty, which I want to hear all about. And Clémence Michallon is the author of The Quiet Tenant, a USA Today and international bestseller, and nominee for the Hammett Prize. She's also a freelance journalist whose work has appeared in the New York Times Book Review, Time Magazine, The Independent, and more. Clémence was born and raised near Paris and has lived in New York since 2014 and became a U.S. citizen in 2022. Our Last Resort is her second thriller. So again, welcome back to our...
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was going to make a joke since these are all thrillers, how thrilled I was to be here, but then they changed the name of the panel to Fate and Fiction. So I'll still tell you about that joke. But since we're going to start talking about genre, so that's what has brought all of you together here. And while your books are sort of similar, they're not exactly. So what I want you to do is imagine the biggest, most detailed bookstore in the world. What section would you put your book in? Okay, instead of just mystery or thriller or general fiction, where would you ideally like to see your book?
I think we should start on that end.
I can go. Would you like me to go first?
Please.
Okay. My books should be in the crime section, but specifically in the literary thriller that feel like someone's hot breath in your ear as they whisper a frenzied secret to you. That's where my books should sit.
That is so good. That is excellent. And also, that relates to a question I have for you later.
Excellent.
A little friend whispering in your ear. Yeah. So, Katherine, where would you put your books?
I would say escapist romantic thrillers.
Ooh.
We've got
Yes, because
escapism, we've got a little bit of romance and
Yeah.
some murder.
Yeah. And they're usually, it's like rich people on an island or a yacht.
Doing bad things.
Yes. Rich people doing bad things is a part of my imaginary bookstore. That crosses all kinds of genres. Okay, you got some time.
They're going to have to hire some kids from high school woodshop, come up with a whole different section,
Right.
and it's going to be called musical thrillers.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, now that we have to return to reality and not go to this wonderful bookstore where each book has its own section, I want to talk more about the labels that you do have to live with. So do you think your books benefit from their genre labels?
Do you want me to go first again?
Go for it.
All right. Yeah, I think so, because, I mean, at least for me, I think genre labels are a good way, are useful insofar as they kind of set expectations, right? They're a way to tell the reader, here's sort of what you can expect the reading experience to feel like when you open this book. And I do think that for me, being in the crime, mystery, thriller section sets the right expectations. I have also noticed, I was thinking about this yesterday, I was talking to myself in my hotel room, as one does. I will say though, as a reader, I read genre, I read non-genre, I read quite widely, and it's the same reader self that I bring to all these books. I don't have like a literary brain and a genre brain, and when it's good, it feels the same way, whether I'm reading literary fiction or a mystery or horror. So I do think there's a common denominator if you reduce the fraction enough. That's the only math figure of speech I will ever use. You were here for it. It will never happen again.
I've always found genre to be quite challenging because I don't fit neatly into one genre.
Right.
And so sometimes my books will be separated in bookstores. Some will go in general fiction, some are in thrillers. I've found one on a romance table. So it's hard because I cross those lines, and I feel like our lives always cross those lines. None of us are one thing. So I do understand that it is helpful to have labels for things, but because I don't neatly fit into one, it's not very helpful for me.
Okay, that's interesting.
I think it's important to get a starting point, a basis. I had no idea what my books what category they would fall under. I didn't know because I'd never read a book like what I had written. So they were normally under thrillers, and then I would see some under mystery, and I'm kind of like, well, okay, I could see that. But then someone actually told me, they were like, no, you created an entirely new genre. No one has done anything like this, so this is your brand new thing, so you should start marketing this way. I'm like, but that's not going to help when the bookstores are like, what do I put it under?
We don't
Doesn't
have
help.
that, yeah.
No, we haven't come up with that one yet. But yeah, I think it's a good starting point. I love thrillers. I love mysteries, but the interesting thing about them, you never know what you're going to get. You know it's going to be a thriller, you know it's going to be a mystery, but you never know what's in between those pages. And to me, that's one of the exciting things about, categorizing stuff. You just never know what you're going to get.
Mm-hmm. And in that same vein of trying to stay in the box and not exactly being there, is there sort of a freedom to be a little more dramatic? Or like if you were writing just a general fiction book and then a foot washes up in an Air Jordan, for example, that might be weird. But is there like sort of a freedom to like, oh, I can really push the limit of what a reader will accept because they're entering this world of thrillers and mysteries where creepy stuff happens?
Make me laugh every time. I think yes and no. Yes, because I think when you open a crime novel, there is sort of this contract between reader and writer that within these pages, some pretty flamboyantly egregious behavior is going to take place, right? Like things we don't hopefully do in our everyday lives. But believability is a huge factor in crime novels, and we have to be really diligent about it. And I actually find it's one of the hardest parts of this work is to make these misbehaviors believable,
right.
And that has to be pretty rigorous. Whereas I find sometimes in literary fiction, you can kind of make up the rules of the universe a little bit more. I mean, from what I can see as a reader, So I think it depends a little bit.
You definitely have to trap your characters in a way with thriller and with mystery. If there is an easy out, if they can just call the cops and the cops are great people and they're going to show up and everything, then you don't have a book.
Yeah.
So that's a big part of it is figuring out, okay, what is my hurdle to getting the truth, and why is this person pulled into this story in such a way that they cannot escape without putting them through the steps that I'm going to put them through as an author
And why
to get
can't
us.
they just call someone and
Right.
solve it on page 5.
Yes,
Yeah.
this is one of the reasons that you'll see a lot of thrillers set on islands, boats. There's no cell service,
Never.
mountains, like all of these places, because you have to take away in this connected world that we live in.
Yeah.
You have to take it away so that you can actually have the thriller.
Right.
I think cell phones and thrillers are the most useless instrument on the face of the planet. I've never read a thriller where a cell phone has actually helped anyone, ever. I don't have reception. It broke. No, but I think I think the believability factor, as Clémence mentioned, that is so incredibly important, along with the entertainment factor. You can do a lot of stretching and a lot of, wishful thinking that, oh wow, I hope this comes across as being believable, if you are entertaining the reader. When I did Dark Maestro, I took a huge risk, toward the end. I've had so many people come up to me and say, there is no way that would ever happen. And then some other people, wow, I could really see how that would happen. And it just worked out. I think if they're entertained along the way, they're willing to stretch the bounds of reality just a little bit, where that cell phone never works, or where, this guy can dress up as a superhero and rescue everyone. And it could happen. It could.
Yeah. Well, in your book, this is a question really for later, but the first half of it is sort of in reality town, and then when things get a little wacky, we enter the world of a comic book, sort of. But anyway, we'll talk about that in a second. But what I wanted to ask about is the process of when you reveal information to your reader when you're plotting out a thriller, suspense, mystery, island, crime, whatever we're calling it. And Clémence, your book especially has a narrator who reveals information at her own pace, although Audrey is also, she's more covert with what she's withholding. But Frida, from the beginning, we're like, something is amiss with Frida.
Yes.
From the very beginning, what's going on with her?
Yes. Frida's the main character and narrator of Our Last Resort, and indeed, from page 1, you can kind of tell, what's going on, Frida? And she doesn't tell you right away because, you got to it's about the journey more than it is about, the destination has to be worth it. Keeping track of what you have disclosed to the reader and what remains to be disclosed is one of the main tasks, I think, of when you're writing a thriller. I don't outline, so I am learning that it's just who I am as a writer. I have very iterative first drafts. They're too long, they're meandering, but that's exactly what they need to be. And no one reads my first drafts, by which I mean no one. My editor doesn't see my first drafts, my agent doesn't see them, my husband doesn't see them. I don't sit down and read them. I've never read a first draft of mine from start to finish, but it's just a discovery process. So in that first draft, what I've disclosed or when I've disclosed is I'm not even close to being able to manage that. But then once I've gotten to know everybody and I understand what everyone's deal is, I gain a lot of clarity and I write the second and third draft, and that's when I'm trying to keep track of that. And what I try to always have in mind is what question is the reader trying to solve? Because I think sometimes when we try to build suspense, we really have to toe the line between, I'm misdirecting you, you can tell there's something I'm not telling you, or I'm just being confusing, right? And so that's something I always try to have in mind. What is the reader wondering right now? And then, of course, there's the magic of copy editors. Copy editors are people who are not your editor, they're not your content editor. They don't shape the book with you. It's a completely different job. They come in and they read the novel once it's edited and they make sure it makes sense. And it never does. You say it's February and then everyone's at the beach outside. It's this cat. The characters suddenly have a cat. They've not mentioned the cat until page 200. That's a recent problem I had in the first draft. I was like, these people need a cat. So that also helps.
Have you heard that quote about a first draft is like scooping sand into a sandbox, knowing that later I will make castles? Because like
Yes.
hearing you talk, like that's exactly my process, and that's exactly how I feel. And I'm like, same girl, same. But it really is that I often don't figure out my final twist until my second draft. I have to get to know these characters, and then once I get to know them, I'm like, wait a minute, this person wouldn't do that. It would be this person, you know. And it's from what you've created that you find that.
And isn't it amazing how much easier it is to fix something that is finished than something that is unfinished? It's a lesson I relearn every time with the same amount of wonder. It's surprising.
Yeah. It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. I, as a musician, I am a stickler for details. So I think that as I'm writing, I've got track of everything. This is cool. This is cool. I'm in the middle of writing my next book now, and I just realized I showed it to my agent, and he thought that something should be something. And I'm like, dude, did you not read page 19 where this person did X, Y, and Z? I'm keeping up with all of this stuff. And in terms of misdirection, when do you give that bit of information that's going to, kind of cue the reader in? Okay, I'm with you. I know what's going on. I always try to push and push and push. Not right now. Nope, not right now. No, not yet, not yet, not yet. There it is. And by the time you get there, it's just like, I can't say what I want to say because there are some nice ladies here. So it gets to the point where it's just like, boom. And that's a really, really, really good thing. And I love it when people think that they've got it figured out based on the info that you've given them, and then you take it in an entirely different direction. And then, then they get frustrated, and then they've got to finish reading it because they have to know what happens. And that's a tool that I'm working on improving all the time, and just to keep it from people, that tension. The more tension you build, the better.
It's great,
I really meant for those nice ladies, it was something nice. It was, I promise.
One thing I said I was going to do and I forgot, I meant to give you a few minutes just to tell us about your book. So we'll pretend this happened like 10 minutes ago. Okay. Brendan, you wanna
And
go
then we'll
first?
fix it later in copy edits. Yes. Our Last Resort, my second crime novel. Brendan, are you rereading your own book? Trying to remember what it's about.
I figured this is the best way to tell you what it's about. What's this right there?
Our Last Resort, my second thriller, tells the story of Frida and Gabriel, two people who travel to a very beautiful but very secluded hotel in the desert in Utah. And they go there to try to mend their sibling relationship. Everything is going well enough, not perfectly well, but okay, until a few days into their stay, a female guest turns up dead, evidently murdered. And the investigation is going to quickly focus on Gabriel because it's not the first time a woman in his life has died, or a woman has died in his orbit. Frida and Gabriel have a very particular kind of bond because they grew up in a reclusive cult together in upstate New York. So the novel is told in dual timelines. One timeline spans days and follows the investigation at the hotel and its consequences on our characters, and the other timeline spans years and years and follows their past in the cult and the fallout from that.
I love a good dual timeline.
Thank you. Oh, it was so hard to write. We can talk about this some more. Oh my God. I started it with an incredible amount of naivete, which I think is necessary to start anything. And I was like, we're going to do dual timelines. And wow, it's really hard.
Did you write them at the same time, or did you write them separately?
In sequence. So like I was going back and forth in drafting, yes.
I do the opposite.
Really? You write them separately?
I write them separately, and then there's like an intense note carding process where I like have to map everything out and figure out, how is this throwing to that.
Yeah.
But when it actually comes to the writing of it, I'm so in the story of the storyline that I feel as though I have to stay with those characters or that the character as they were at that time in their life, and then do the other one. I have to chunk it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It does sound easier your way. Katherine.
Hey, Kat, what's your book about?
My book is named Sunburned, and it is more of a murder mystery than any of my other books are. I wanted to do kind of a locked room murder mystery, kind of as just a fun challenge. We follow single mother Audrey, who is summoned to the beautiful, exclusive island of St. Bart's by her ex-boyfriend Tyson, who has, in the 10 years since they broke up, become a tech billionaire. He's also become very weird and paranoid. And he is convinced that someone in his entourage is blackmailing him. And he calls Audrey down there to St. Bart's to his compound to find out who, because they're blackmailing him about secrets that they both share from their past. And she doesn't want to go. It didn't end well between them, but he's going to tell these secrets if she doesn't. So she goes down there and immediately finds out that, like, everyone in his entourage has a reason to wish him harm. He's got this like beautiful Belgian wife whose wings he's clipped, her best friend who she's a little too close with, the sexy French butler who seems to know more than he should, his brother who has always been in his shadow, his business partner who he's essentially holding hostage. So she has not had a whole lot of time to figure out what's going on behind closed doors before his birthday dive turns deadly. And she is now not just looking for a blackmailer, but a murderer. And she's trapped on his yacht with all these people, one of whom is a murderer, and she needs to figure out who it is before she becomes the next victim or is blamed for the death. I like that response. Brendan, tell us what your book is about.
Okay, since you asked. No, I just figured, okay, I have not gotten my pitch down as eloquently as these two lovely young women to my left, but I'm just going to tell you what my editor wrote, so it makes sense to me, and I think it's pretty good. Will you be the judge? Well, actually, it is good. All right. Curtis Wilson is a cello prodigy growing up in Southeast DC projects with a drug dealer for a father, but through determination and talent and the loving support of his father's girlfriend, Larissa, Curtis claws his way out of his challenging circumstances and rises to unimagined heights in the classical music world, even soloing with the New York Philharmonic. And suddenly, his life disintegrates. His father, Zippy, turns state's evidence implicating his old bosses. Now the family, Curtis included, must enter witness protection if they want to survive. This means that Curtis must give up the very thing that he loves the most, sharing his extraordinary music with the world. When Zippy's bosses prove too elusive for law enforcement, Curtis, Zippy, and Larissa realize that their only chance of survival is to take on the criminals themselves. They must create new identities and draw on their unique talents, including Curtis's musical ability to go after multiple people who want them dead. But will it be enough to save Curtis and his family? And the way that Curtis does that is through a comic book persona he develops called the Dark Maestro. And yeah, it doesn't go where you think it's going to go. It's good stuff.
It really doesn't. I was very surprised at what was happening. It's great. Like
in a good way.
Oh, yeah, definitely in a good way. Yeah. But it was clear, when you read this book, it's clear that obviously you really love music, as your other two books have had a musical base, but you also really love comic books. And so with that in mind, this question is for Clémence and Katherine. This
is going to be good.
If you had to write a book that combined two things that you really love, what would those books be about? Even if they're not, like, you love collecting stamps and hamsters, like, and you create this, whatever. What are two things that you really love that it would be maybe a challenge to make your book about?
My dog. And 1970s videos of Baryshnikov dancing.
I am also very into that. Very into that.
I feel like my book's already, like, I love traveling, and every single one of my books is set in a different location so that I get to go there in my head every day when I'm writing it. And I really love, like, Aperol spritzes, and they're in my books, too. I mean, I love my children, but I definitely don't want to write a book about them.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm a soccer mom. I don't want to write a book about that.
Right.
You know,
Yeah, the
traveling in
other soccer
Aperol
moms
spread.
would
That's
not-
it. Yeah.
Would not like that. Yeah. Okay, so Brendan, so your book, I mean, it's sort of reductive to say it's about music and comic books, but it's really mostly about the relationship between Curtis and Zippy. I mean, that's really the heart of the book and what it's about. Can you talk about how you explored that complicated bond?
Yes. Family dynamics, every single person in this room can relate to. If there's a person in this room who does not have some type of dysfunction in your family, you should write a book. So it's something that's very relatable. And personally, I didn't have the greatest relationship. I never understood my dad. I didn't get him. I mean, we just, my other siblings adored him, but he and I just always rubbed the wrong way. And it was my intention before he passed away to actually make up with him as an adult. And I never had that opportunity. So this story, in some small way, explores the way that I would have gone about reconciling with my dad. And a lot of people can relate to that because it sucks, but it's real. A lot of people, we all know at least one person who has issues with, daddy issues, I guess you call them. But this was a way, it was very therapeutic for me to be able to do this because, I never got that opportunity. And hopefully it will encourage people, talk to the people that you love, even if you're angry at them, because they're all you got. And once they're gone, they're gone. That opportunity you had, it's gone. So take advantage of it while we're still here. We do way too much, after thinking. We think after, I should have. Curtis had the opportunity and Zippy had the opportunity and they took it. And I'm so glad in the story that they were able to do that before things happened.
But it takes them, the whole book to get there.
But they do get there.
Which I thought was, though, very realistic. That one, especially Zippy, would try to reach out and be rejected and then wash his hands for a while until something, until Larissa, encourages him to try again. But I thought that was just very realistic because I didn't actually know if they would reconcile. But now, spoiler, for all of y'all.
God, thanks, Tracy.
You brought it up.
I did. I really
You did. So I mentioned before that, when Curtis takes on this persona of the Dark Maestro, the book moves sort of into the mode of kind of more of a comic book, the action. There's a lot of action. Tell us about how that was, to sort of move the plot in that direction and kind of depart from, stuff that usually happens to stuff that, it could happen.
It could.
It could happen, but not usually.
That was actually therapeutic as well. This whole book was just therapy. God. It was because I was going through a lot health-wise, and when you read the book and you'll see some things that it'll make perfect sense. I moved it in that direction because it was one of the few things that really made me happy and that I totally understood. I've been reading comic books and collecting them since I was 15. I've got 15,000 comic books right now. And, I got some pretty valuable ones and some signed number ones. And, it took me till I was over the age of 50 to get one of them signed by my favorite artist he's the reason I started collecting comic books. And I met him and he signed my book and it was just fantastic. But it's what I knew, it's what I know. And I got some great advice from my friend Eli Craner, write what you know. Write what you know, and that's what I know, and that's what I was loving at the time. It was one of the things that really made me feel a little bit better, although I was physically ill. So going in that direction, I knew that it was something that I actually had mastery of. I could do that. I didn't have to do a lot of research. I didn't have to ask anyone, because it was in my wheelhouse. It was something I felt, okay, you know what? I can write anything down and no one will come and question me because it'll be boom. And, that made me happy and I'm hoping that it came. Any comic book heads in here? Dude, was I accurate?
I'm going to get this afterwards.
Okay, all right. We're just going to go with yes on that. Okay. But it was something that I felt strongly about and I've always wanted to do it.
Yeah.
But the first thing that goes through your head, who is going to want to read a book about a cellist and a comic book? Who wants to do that?
I mean, I did.
I mean, that's the original. That's my thought. I'm thinking that, but then I'm like, you know what? If I love it, maybe it'll come through on the
It
page.
does.
I hope
It
so.
absolutely does.
Oh, good.
Yeah, no.
Somebody
it's
doesn't know that yet.
It's obvious that you know a lot about these two things and that you deeply love them both,
Oh.
you know, and that definitely comes through. And you sort of alluded to this, but now I'm going to make you talk about it. Can you tell us the personal story of, behind the organ transplant plot?
You're giving away the book.
I didn't say
I'm
what
kidding.
happened.
Jokes. Kidding. Sorry, ladies. The whole organ transplant thing, I had a kidney transplant 1 year ago. And prior to my kidney transplant, I was getting sicker and sicker and sicker and sicker. I don't smoke, I don't drink. I was in good shape and just everything was going downhill. When I was writing this book, it was to the point where all I could do was get out of bed, go to the couch, put the computer on my chest and write. That's all I had the strength to do. And I honestly didn't know if I was going to make it through this book. I didn't know if I was going to be alive by the time, so I really wanted to make sure that people understood where everything was coming from. And the whole organ transplant plot that's in the story, it's what I was experiencing at the time, and I learned a ton about organ transplants and, you know, just kidneys in general and what happens. And the sad thing is, a lot of this stuff is actually happening. It really happens. When you read what goes on, it's real. It really, really does take place, and that, you know, that bothered me a bit. And I'm like, I need to bring awareness to this. And just to put a pin in this, my best friend, since we were 19 years old, my best friend from college was my kidney donor, and we were a 98% match, which was nuts. So he went in. 5 seconds later, I go in for the surgeries. They gave us really good drugs. We had some really, really good drugs. Whew, they were great. And just the fact that he saved my life. He didn't have to do it. I didn't ask him to do it. He said this, I couldn't imagine a world without Brendan. And I just, so I'm an ambassador for organ donation and living donors and all of that stuff. It's been a year and I feel better than I felt in a decade. So that's where all of that came from and all of that stuff. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on that.
Sure, absolutely. I figured since it's in the afterwards, so it was safe to ask a question about. It wasn't like I just Googled it and found your secret. One more question just for you, and then we'll get to the other.
I'm having a good
We do
time.
have other panelists.
Everyone gets a turn, and then we focus on each author. That's just how I roll.
That's how Tracy rolls.
That's
you
how
guys.
I roll.
All right.
So you said before that you're, the kids who are making the subjects for the imaginary bookstore will be putting your books in the musical thrillers. But so is it safe to say that music will be a part of all of your books? Are you committed to that, or will you go rogue one day and leave music behind?
Oh.
I know. Doesn't that sound horrible?
That might be the title of my next book. The Day I Left Music Behind. No, I am going to continue to write what I know, but I'm never going to say never. I'll never say never, because the moment you say that, it's going to happen. My thing is, I've got ideas for another 12, 13 books.
Okay.
My goal is to be, I'm telling you, I'm going to be the Stephen King of musical thrillers. I want other people to write in this genre. I would love to hear other people's takes on their musical experiences, and not just come from me. I think it's really interesting. Even if you're not a musician, you can appreciate it because music has touched every person in this room in some form or another. So other perspectives on that, I would love to hear. I would love to see. But as long as people remember, I'm the guy who started it.
Okay, yeah. You should trademark that thing. Write that down. Make a note. Note to self.
Note to
Right. Okay, so Clémence, you mentioned that your book, Sketchy Frida, and her kind of brother Gabriel, they have, they grew up in a cult. So can you talk about what's intriguing to you about cults and why you think the rest of us are also intrigued? Because everybody is.
So I grew up in France. I've been in the U.S. for 11 years, but I was born and raised in France. English is my second language. This is extraneous to this question, but just for background. I grew up in France, pretty culty country, France, generally speaking. And I was a kid when I found out that cults were a thing. I caught a segment on French TV. It was kind of a 60-minute style segment. And I think I had to cults the same reaction that I had to serial killers, which was one, it would have never occurred to me that anything like this could happen or exist. And two, it makes perfect sense that it would happen or exist, that it would come out of just us trying to exist together, which is hard and complicated as an exercise. I think cults are fascinating because, well, first of all, they're always weird. It's always stuff that is a little completely out of the ordinary, and I think that's fascinating in itself. But I also think that they prey on good qualities in people, right? Like the qualities that make people susceptible to cults are like, they're people who are existential and value-driven and who ask themselves questions about how to exist in the world. And these are all questions maybe that we've asked ourselves, and so I think that's part of it. So that's why, and that's also why they make me so angry, because they take what should be a good thing and then use it to manipulate people and turn it, toxic.
And related to that, so Frida and Gabriel are siblings. They grow up as siblings. Can you talk about their perception of family growing up in this cult and how that might lead them to make the decisions that they made?
Yes, so Gabriel and Frida refer to each other as siblings, and this is not a massive spoiler. I think it's literally the opening.
It's a little spoiler.
It's like,
it's
yeah,
not
but
a
it's
big one.
I think it's the first line of chapter 3. So if you can just hold on for 2 chapters, then we'll all be on the same page. Frida and Gabriel are not actually biologically related. The cult they grow up in erases family ties. They were born in it, and inside this fictional cult that I made up, and that was a fun exercise. Inside this fictional cult, kids don't know who their parents are. They are the mothers and the fathers collectively, and they don't know who is whose. And kids who have biological siblings know, but that's just about it. And so for them, what they call siblings isn't necessarily what we would call siblings. The reason for that is I've always been fascinated by stories of people who have a draw to each other that doesn't fit into any of the formats that are provided for us. It's not romantic love. It's not exactly friendship. There's more need there than, in friendship. And so it's something that's kind of its own. And so Frida and Gabriel have this very intense bond that some have accurately described as a trauma bond, because they grew up in this really difficult environment. And I don't want to reveal too much, but it means that it's really hard for them to conceive of a world or a life without the other, which was exactly what I wanted for the story I was trying to tell. That's why they grew up in a cult, actually.
Okay. And when you were describing your book earlier, at the beginning, remember how we did that? Just rewriting history here. And you mentioned your books are, it's like a friend is like breathlessly whispering in your ear. And when you read the book physically, the sentences are often very short, and there's an urgency. And is that, I think the answer is yes, but I'm asking if that is an intentional device you're using to build suspense and to make the pages go fast. Because you're like, oh my gosh, what? Oh my gosh, the man there, he's the one. Those are example sentences.
Yes. Generally speaking, sentence length is something I think about a lot, because I like to think about musicality and cadence and rhythm and just the feel of a text, right? Like it has to be a bit like a song that is that just like is a little hypnotic. And so I find that for that, it's just very basic, but I have a journalism background and we learn the same thing in the newsroom, short, medium, long, like just change it up. And so in order to let those long sentences, in order to have enough breath for them, right, like it helps to have a couple of short sentences around. So I do think about that, and I read out loud. I read my own stuff out loud as well, because it should flow.
Yeah. Katherine, I wanted to ask, you mentioned the closed, wait, it's not called closed door, what is it called?
Locked room.
Locked room. So there are some definite nods to Agatha Christie and other classic mystery authors. Who are the mystery or thriller masters that influenced you?
Oh man, there are so many. Obviously, Agatha Christie. I went back and read some old, we were staying at a beach house, and I always like to peruse the bookshelves of beach houses.
The well-loved,
yes,
yeah.
and Mary Kay Andrews. I found some old those books. My mind is drawing a blank because you're putting me on the spot, and I can't remember.
Yes.
Anyone's
You've never
name.
read a book.
I've never read a book. No. I should have written it on my palm. Let me see.
Well, your book seems at first like it's going to be this, it's rich people doing bad things, and it's going to be this light and breezy island story. And then there are some really, grisly details. I mentioned the foot earlier. There's a foot that washes up. It still has its shoe on. And there's also a note that it's really common to find feet.
So
that is a fun fact I did not know.
Some of you may have seen the same series of articles that came out probably about 2 years ago when I was starting to write this book. Feet were washing ashore actually in Seattle, in the Seattle Sound. Did you read the same thing?
I'd forgotten about that.
Okay.
It just came back to me.
I was like, somebody else is going to do this first.
No. It just washed back ashore in my memory like a foot in Seattle.
I was like a foot in a sneaker, and I was like, that is fascinating. And it's something about the construction, the hardy construction of shoes today, that the rest of the body disintegrates in something like 3 days if it's in the ocean. But because of the sneakers, and especially with high tops, the foot will get in there, and so even if most of the foot is gone, there's enough genetic material left in the sneaker to determine who it belonged to. So I was like, okay, I definitely need to use that for a thriller. And so that is how this thriller begins. That's how the past literally washes ashore in the form of a foot of a person that was until now a missing person. And now this person is presumed dead, unless they just, are we okay? Are we?
Yeah, if someone's...
Okay. I was like, is that an alarm? Do we need to run out of the building? Yes, so that was a really fun detail to be able to add.
Yeah. Do y'all ever worry, since there's murder and all kinds of things in your books, that if someone close to you goes missing, will they look at you like, well, I found in your book the foot?
If anyone ever looks at my Google search history, I'm in big trouble. I know all kinds of things about how to kill someone, where to bury the body, how long it's going to take to disintegrate, all those kind of things.
Yeah. I was just thinking, if someone is in the audience is planning on murdering someone, they're like, I'll take his shoes off first. Things you learn at the Mississippi Book Festival, right? Okay, another question for you. So there are a lot of characters in your book. You mentioned, the wife and her friend, very close friend, all of these people. There's the scene on the yacht is, everyone is there, and they're all moving around. And while I was reading, I didn't have any trouble keeping up with who was where, and okay, these people are on the top, and these whatever. How did you keep them straight where they were? I imagined a Clue board game, and moving the little pieces around to keep them straight.
I actually did have yacht plans, for the actual yacht. So it was based on an actual yacht, and I was able to not just picture it kind of nebulously, but actually be okay, I could follow, these stairs are going to go here, and this, because it really does need to to feel real.
Yeah.
And it was really fun to do that. And as you were saying earlier, like, yes, it's set in this beautiful location somewhere that we would all want to go, that I have been and loved going. But one of my favorite things to do is to take something that looks beautiful on the surface, and then once you start to peel back the layers underneath, you find that it's actually quite ugly, and it's not what it appears to be. So I find that fascinating when things are not what they appear to be on the surface.
So Audrey, the main character, she's kind of an investigator. What is her title?
She does legal discovery, so she works for lawyers leading up to trial, helping them do discovery work for the things that are going to come out in a trial. So it's PI adjacent.
Right. So I was wondering if she was a one-off character, or because she is a kind of detective, if we will see her again.
I've thought about that, and it's something, in talking about television adaptations that we play with, and we think about, like, well, is this like, could this be, like, is this a closed-ended, because it could be just a movie of what happens. It's a murder mystery, but this is also a character that could go on. That the thing that she does, I was trying to make her not a PI, because I feel like PI has been done and done and done and done, but I wanted her to have, like, something that would make her a good investigator, and my brother, who is an attorney, helped me figure out that specific niche for her to have, Yeah,
that's interesting. And speaking of adaptations, I think all three of you have at least something in the works for one or more of your books. Can you talk about that, or are you allowed to? I asked this question one time, and this woman was like, "No, I can't speak of it." So I was like, "Should I even write it down? I don't know."
Yeah, I can talk about it a little bit. Yes. Both of my books, so Our Last Resort and The Quiet Tenant, both have been optioned by Blumhouse for TV series adaptations, so each of them. The Quiet Tenant is currently in development. Let's see, what have we publicly announced? A production company that was co-founded by multiple people, including Charlize Theron, has joined as co-producers. Ooh. And we also have a man called Anthony Zeiker as our writer and showrunner. He created a show called CSI. So that's where that is. And I'm attached as an executive producer. Oh. It's been really fun. Yeah. Thank you. And then Our Last Resort, the book is more recent, so the deal is also more recent. So that's pretty much the update. They've optioned it. I've also attached as an EP, and they've just been marvelous to work with, and I'm learning a lot. It's been great.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Awesome.
I am actually writing the adaptation for both Lady Killer, which was my last book, and The Lion's Den, which was my first book. And it's been a very different experience with the two of them. The Lion's Den, we have this like huge package. They're at different studios, which has been like, herding cats. And then Lady Killer was just me in the studio, which makes it so much easier. So it's so interesting, like how differently things can go depending on like what studio you're with and how it's being done. And coming from Hollywood, I can just say that like every hurdle that you clear is like one step closer, but until it's on the screen, I'll believe it when I see it.
That's probably really good advice, especially since you know about it already.
Uh-huh.
And Brendan, you also have some news about that, don't you?
Yeah. Congrats. And Kat, I know you're a Hollywood person. Please don't take offense to this. Please don't, because we're friends now. I just met her, but we're friends now. Okay. Hollywood people will tell you whatever you want to hear. Mm-hmm. Seriously.
No, I agree completely.
Okay,
yes.
okay, good. All right. I am in negotiations right now with a huge production company, and every one of you has seen all of their movies. Hi-ho, hi-ho, it's off to look. Anybody know anything about that song? Okay, anyway. But I'm working with a producer who has done, you guys have seen The Breakfast Club. Mm-hmm. You've seen Better Off Dead. Okay, yeah, that's the producer that I'm working with right now. And when I tell you, we cleared a major hurdle, but they just keep coming. And we're in talks to do all three of my books. Yeah.
That's very exciting. Congrats.
Well, let's, before we open it up for questions, what's next for y'all? I know you have this book, it's this major thing, and then everyone wants to know what you're going to do next.
I have, as of 3 weeks ago, finished the first draft of my third crime novel.
All right.
Thank you. It's been a really fun one, and it really is the draft that this manuscript that I'm working on, because now I'm revising it on my own, it's my favorite part. I love when I'm done with the first draft and I can like play with it and start making it better and shaping it. Because as I mentioned, my first drafts are not good. And so first drafts just stress me out. I would not write books if there was only the first draft. Like it's just, I'm so stressed when I'm doing a first draft, but now I'm having fun. And it really is the project that taught me again that really, for me, I have to pace myself. I can't try to go too fast, and I can't try to force order onto this thing too early. That's something Maggie Smith writes in her book, Dear Writer. Don't try to force order onto the project too early on. Because I wrote a really meandering first draft. It's 120,000 words long, which is like, it's about 30,000 words too long. And I also have 50,000 words of like various notes that will never just make it into this book. So what I've learned is in order to write 90,000 adequate words, I have to throw out 80,000 words. But now, I know my characters. I know exactly who they are. I know what motivates them. I know, and so I can rewrite all those scenes knowing exactly where, their heads are at. And it's been really, really, really fun. And I can't really say what it's about because it's all going to change in edits. So even if I said it, it would change. I will say though that I dropped a clue in the course of this panel. One thing I mentioned is related to book 3.
Cult.
I have just turned in an entirely too long draft of my next book to my agent. It was 110, so not quite 120, but
120
still
was
too
really,
long. But which is nice though, because it's much easier to cut than it is to add, I think. So I've just turned that into her, and it is more, it's a little bit different for me. It's more of a family drama. There is a mystery element, but it's kind of a departure. It's a little bit more literary fiction than my other stuff has been. And then I'm also working on writing the television shows for my various adaptations, so.
You guys are awesome. I am 13 chapters into my next book. I haven't finished the draft yet, so I got some work to do to keep up with these two. Okay, thank you for the motivation. Thank you very much. But it's actually based on a true story, and it is just make sure you're sitting down when you read it, because you will not believe it, but you will. And I'm hoping to be done by the end of October, so I can start on the one after that.
Great. Do we have time for questions? Okay. Sure. We have a few minutes if anyone has a question. You in the back? Yeah.
So just a question that somebody who writes historical fiction but really enjoys the momentum of crime fiction stories. Any recommendations in terms of technique on how elements of your genres can be incorporated into other genres that might not traditionally have those techniques, or any resources?
Go ahead.
Are you talking about to keep the pages turning?
Right.
I feel like it's always good practice to end chapters in such a way that invites the reader to turn to the next chapter. It's like you give them a little bit of information, but not quite enough, or you end on a surprise that makes them want to turn the page, and that can work no matter what kind of fiction you're writing.
There's also a little trick that I learned when I was in edits for The Quiet Tenant, my previous crime novel. This came from my editor at the time. I did not come up with it. But The Quiet Tenant was told in multiple points of view, and Our Last Resort is told in dual timelines, so you do have those shifts between chapters. And if you can sort of thematically link the end of one chapter to the beginning of the other, even if they're told from different perspectives or they take place at different points in time, but it does something to the brain that just that makes it that you don't lose your reader between those two chapters.
Keep the stakes high throughout. Keep them high. Whatever you think you're doing and you think, okay, these stakes are high, push it even further. Keep going. Keep them high.
That's great advice. Oh, you.
Yes, so actually I have a question for you.
Yes.
I'm an English as a second language teacher in JPS, and so the majority of my students are all Hispanic, but I have 2 children from Yemen that speak Arabic, and you are just so eloquent, and when you speak, and it flows so nicely. How did you get to be so fluent in English and, I'm assuming, French? And why did you choose to write a book in English rather than your first language?
Well, thank you so much, first of all, for your very kind words. English, well, a few things, right? I realized recently that I took English as a second language classes from the time I was 9 to the time I was 19. It's the single skill I have most practiced, like in a classroom sitting down in my entire life, right? From primary school to the college level. So a lot of like just being drilled on irregular verbs and stuff. But then, of course, I don't like to brag, but I watch a lot of television. A whole generation of children learned English watching Friends. I was one of them. But then I actually wrote an essay about this very recently. It ran in the magazine Allure, if anyone wants to read it. What really got me into like fully fluent was watching makeup tutorials on YouTube. Because I'm 33 for one more month, and so I was in my early 20s in the late 2000s. Does that make sense? Yes, I think. And at the time, YouTube was the only source of speech that was from native speaker to native speaker that wasn't scripted. And it wasn't the stilted, horrible dialogue of like grammar lessons, which I can't anymore. I still remember the little drama though. When I was in middle school, there was this character called Donovan. He had problems with his girlfriend Christy. Anyway, I never got the end of it because then the textbook changed. Yeah, so those 3 things really. And then writing in English, just a lot of the literature I love was contemporary American literature, and I wanted to try it. And also, when you write in English, you have such a wonderfully large audience. People pay attention, people listen. You know, a lot of people can read you. And it helps me not overwrite as well, because I have a little difficulty, and sometimes that actually can kind of help. When I can't write a scene, I give myself a little technical challenge. There was a scene in Our Last Resort that I struggled with. It's the first scene where we see the cult leader, and it's told from the perspective of Frida, and so it's first person, and I told myself, try to write it without using the word I, like I do this, blah, blah, blah. And then I edited it, it reads normally. But that's how I got it out. So that's a long answer, sorry, to your question. But yeah. Thank you, my gosh.
Okay, we'll take one more. Do you still have a question? Okay. Anyone else? Okay.
So a lot of people that pick up a fiction book pick it up for escapism, and we flock to thrillers, but thrillers are gruesome and dark and gritty and scary. So what do you think it is about a thriller, or what you would classify your book as, that you think still gives us the escapism when we read?
It's a great question.
I think there's a part of it that allows you to experience the worst that could happen, and makes you feel better about your own life, and allows you to experience, like people love watching horror movies to feel the fear without somebody actually running after them with a knife. So I think there's definitely a part of it that is that. And it's also, there's an element, it's entertaining. It's high stakes, like you were saying earlier.
No, go ahead, Brandon.
It's just, it takes you out of whatever's going on in your head, in your own body, in your own life. It just takes you away from it. Everything that you've experienced that may be great or may not necessarily be good, it just takes you, it's like hitting pause. and you're being entertained while you're not having to think about what it is that's going wrong today. And like Kat just mentioned, you never know. You honestly never ever know what you're going to get. So that's a huge form of entertainment. The anticipation, I think we all kind of dig a bit of anticipation, just because you truly don't know what's coming at the end. Is it going to be satisfying? Is it going to be, a letdown? You never know until you actually get there. So you're completely out of your own world, and I think that's one of the best forms of entertainment. That we don't have to worry about everything that's going crazy in this world and in our lives and everything. So I think that's one reason people are drawn to them. Even if something bad happens, it's not happening to you. Yeah.
I totally agree with this, and I would add two things. There's a writer called Rachel Monroe, and she wrote a book called Savage Appetites, and it's a nonfiction book about true crime. And she says it about true crime, but I think it applies to crime fiction as well. She has this whole chapter where she examines why we are drawn to stories of crime, and she observes that in her own life, when she has maybe been a bit depressed, or when she's dealing with stuff, is when she goes back to true crime stories. And she has this theory that we sort of channel our own trauma, be it small or big, individual or systemic, into these specific stories, right? And so I think that's part of it. The second thing, at least for me, is I'm just so glad I'm not one of the characters. I have a recurring nightmare that I've killed somebody, and I'm realizing that it's gonna ruin my life, right? I'm like, oh my God, I have to live with this. It's awful.
Is it because of what we do?
I think. And I almost, like, in the nightmare, I'm like, oh my God, I have to hide this from everyone, and someone's gonna find out, and my career is gonna be over. For some reason, that's like the thing. It's like, and then I wake up and I'm like, and so when I'm reading a crime novel, there's usually at least one character who makes very bad decisions and has horrible problems, and I'm like, I'm so glad I'm not this person. So I think that's part of the draw too.
Well, y'all, we are out of time, but these three wonderful authors are going to be at the signing tent at 3 o'clock, which gives you time to go run to the Lemuria tent and buy their books before you line up.
Thank you, Tracy.
So thank you so much.
And thank you, everyone.